thing that you have with that is now you've got a two-way signal going in. I
Mm-hmm.
can communicate with the device, and the device can then communicate back. And so the challenge there is, what are you doing? How is that data communication happening?
Podcast. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. You're really interesting because you're running multiple things at the same time. I love that about you. You have this connection in a network. You're connecting founders and startups within the region, within York region together. You have Infield Clipboard that became Infield Solutions, I believe.
Yes.
Right. That just won this year's you placed third place in
Yeah,
venture
pitch competition.
in Venture Labs pitch
Made in York
competition.
region. Yeah.
Made in York region. There you go. Yeah, I mean, long term coming. I mean, you guys have been grinding away at this for a few years now. You had a solution out in the marketplace that was really robust, and I know you kind of spiraled from that. Last time we talked, I think it was a year ago at the last Made in York region event, 2019. We just talked about that.
Yeah.
But even before that, we have had a few touch points here and there at different competitions, different meetings, events. And I think we were introduced by our mutual friend Bren,
Yes.
that also works with you as well, right?
In our sister company. Yes.
In a sister company. Yeah, there you go. So I want to talk about a few things, like definitely all the different things you have going on with Infield and the sister companies and the product offerings, because I think you're building kind of like an ecosystem, right? With all these products and services that can.
Well, it's interesting you use the word ecosystem because the difficulty in situations like this is that am I trying to be too much to everybody, or am I really focused on the area that supports, one set of customers?
Yeah. And this is really the question I really want to get an answer from, because you hear this all the time from startup folks to mentors to VCs. It's like, hey, start your company off, focus on one problem set for one target audience, get really good at that, and then when you grow and you can expand into different areas. Right, and that's usually what you hear. And even like the traditional SaaS-based businesses and technology firms, that's what they do. They sell a core business, so their brand becomes synonymous with a solution to that problem. People are thinking about that, right? And that's generally the success metrics you've seen. That's generally the hype metrics you've seen. You see the Uber that is, does an X, Airbnb that does X, right? They have a whole bunch of different things they do around that, but they're known for this one problem, right? So with Infield, what's that one problem? Because you guys have an ecosystem you're developing, like a community of applications.
So we started out as a technology firm. So we actually became an IT services firm. That's what Vertace is, and it's a sister company. And it's still operational, it's still running. But in that, we started to get requests from different organizations to say, hey, you know what, you're supporting me on my IT side. Can you also support me on software development? So we started going through that, and we came with two of our customers came back to us and said, hey, we need software development to be able to manage our workforce in the field through their mobile devices. We did a lot of research around that, and we couldn't find one that was cost effective enough, small enough that it would be relatively easily used by all of the different people in the field.
Sorry, this was in 2015, 2016?
This is earlier. This is actually like 2012, 2013.
Wow, okay, yeah. That makes much sense, yeah.
Yeah, and then what we did was, over the next 5 years, we started to develop more customers. We started to create a SaaS play in what we call field service management software. What we then realized is that we're focusing on IT, we're focusing on software development, we're focusing on new biz development, we're doing a lot of different focuses. And so what we did was we split the company from the technology, or the IT services company, into a software play. So Infield Clipboard became our software play. And I use it with quotes because that's the real name of our software, is Clipboard. And the idea here is that you're in the field and you've got a digital clipboard, where people used to be walking around with paper. Now they walk around with their cell phones, which they have anyway. And all we've done is digitize their entire paper workflow into a digital format. Within 2 years, within a year of us splitting Infield Clipboard out, we expanded our services to call it Solutions, because now customers came to us and say, hey, you've got this great little piece of software which I'm using. Can you make it smart for my kind of customer? So we started to get into something we call leak mitigations, or leak warnings. And then in the same way, we started getting into another set of services. Again, our customers came to us and say, can you do this? So as genius as we think we are, is we're really looking at what our customers are telling us they want. We're developing it, and then we're expanding on opportunities based on those specific needs that the customers are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so our customers are coming to us and asking us, "Can you do this, 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 and this?" That's how we grown our business over the last multiple years. So today, as solutions, we're focusing most of our attention on what we're calling building IQ. So building IQ means that we're going after smart water or smart washrooms, so we can tell you how many people are going in, how many people are coming out, and then we can take that information and create a uh, trigger to say, hey, listen, 50 people have gone in, you should send somebody to clean up, or 20 people have used this particular stall, you should send somebody to make sure that that stall gets replenished or cleaned up or whatever. So within that smart washroom, we've also added, or we've had our leak mitigation, so what we call water IQ. So we're able to say, hey, you know what, you've got a leak on the 5th floor. You need to be able to send a message, detect the leak, identify the severity of the leak, send a message to the key stakeholders for that particular location, and make sure that it gets there in a timely manner. We've done an implementation already this year in the middle of COVID, interestingly enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're testing, we're doing all this, we're putting it in, we're working with the customer, and all of a sudden I get a leak alert. And I'm looking at this, I don't remember setting up a test for this time. And so then I call up the customer. I said, "Hey, did you get a leak?" It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. "Hey, did you get a leak alert?" And she goes, "Yeah, I got a leak alert at 7 in the morning," which is great because that's when the leak happened. My other sensors didn't send me anything till 10 in the morning.
Hmm.
And so in that 3-hour time frame, they were able to send a plumber or whomever to clean up the leak, fix the problem, identify what the problem was, and get it cleaned up as quickly as they could.
Mm-hmm.
That happened 6 times over the last 6 months.
Jeez.
So for us, it's a huge, huge validation of the success that we've had with that. So all that is encompassed under building IQ. Now
Mm-hmm.
we're starting something new because we're gotten into a relationship with a great company out of Montreal, and they're doing lockers, digital lockers. So what that means is, so in your building, I don't know if you remember what your condo looked like or what your first apartment looked like. I remember mine very clearly. If I ever received a package, it just sat there on the floor. It was available for everybody to see. There was a value of trust associated to it. You would go pick up your package, or it would sit in the mailroom.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, that was 25 years ago for me. In today's world, packages are coming in and out of buildings constantly, and the concierge can't look after it if they do, or the security guard can't look after it if they do. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing is we're developing these lockers, but our locker system is different than others in that it's totally touchless. So the delivery person comes in, scans the barcode on the package, and says, "Okay, these are the available lockers." Puts the package into, say, locker number 5, closes the door. That information gets stored in our cloud. The recipient receives the barcode, comes down, scans their barcode, locker number 5 opens, picks it up, all touchless.
Mm-hmm.
That's again an extension to what we're doing under Building IQ.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
very exciting for us because those are our 3 main pieces. And then we're doing one more, which we've been working on for the last 2 years. And we've
Mm-hmm.
really honed our software really well, and we're now creating franchisees for that. And it's what we call Food IQ. So we IQ everything.
Food IQ, I remember this. Mm-hmm.
So we call it Food IQ, and the idea behind that is, or really, it's shop, not even food, because we're not just delivering food and creating a marketplace like a convenience store. We're not just doing that; it's all sorts of things that we can do now with those. And now with the smart locker component that
Mm-hmm.
we're building called Connected Cubbies, we're able to do more with those kinds of locations.
Mm-hmm.
So this, and it's all focused around Infield solutions, but it's focused around this building IQ. So, what do we have to do for property, prop tech? How do we make those improvements easier? How do you support the uh, maintenance people? How do you support the people who are within the units of those buildings, and so on? So yeah, lots of things,
Mm-hmm.
constantly changing. Pivoting as we need to pivot in order to be able to take the feedback that we receive from our customers, and then create a business model around it. Does that
Yeah, I
all
mean,
make sense?
yeah, I mean, the way you explain it, Like, you're seeing these different verticals that happen all within the property tech space, and by having this like this again this economy of different tools that can be deployed, you're solving this core problem for building managers, how to better manage their properties, how to
Right.
employ smarter technologies. And since you have this like the different suite of products, right? It's almost plug and play what exactly their needs are, how to plug it in.
And the interesting thing about it is the core technology that we've developed over the last 7 years, which is clipboard, is all facets of the same piece that we're actually deploying in all these different plays.
Hmm.
So what's great about that is that we haven't gone away from our original core. Now we're just creating threads from that original core to all the different technology or solutions that we're putting out into the marketplace.
Yeah, we had Ari from Kohler's International's prop tech accelerator.
Yep.
I think it's located in Toronto, and they focus. He talked a lot about how there's these huge public and private interest groups that are working together to better bring technology into the property management space. And the reason is security, but also this informatics, right? The ability to bring down lags and provide intelligence to an aged industry,
Yeah.
right? How does that look like for you? Because most property managers are pretty much older gentlemen, right, in their 70s, who are managing properties in a very in a systematic way they're comfortable with for like 20 years, 30 years, right? How has the response been like from the use of technology at the scale?
I think the response is quite positive.
Hmm.
I think it really comes down to, in the end, for anybody, including property managers, it's dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And so the way we frame it and the way we position it is, there's three or four components of costs you need to look at.
Hmm.
One is that typically how many leaks do you have in a year? If you've got a relatively new building, even in new buildings you get leaks. But if you've got a relatively new building, you're not going to be able to define that. But let's say, like in the example that I just gave, we've had 6 leaks in 6 months. That's a relatively new building. So let's say a leak a month. Let's be really conservative, and let's say a leak a quarter, for example. Okay, so you get a leak a quarter. So what's your cost on, how quickly have you found the leak in the first place?
Hmm.
And if you haven't found the leak relatively quickly, what's your cost been to repair? So then, if you look at it from a cost of the leak itself and the repair costs, and that's just the repair cost of that particular location. What if that leak expanded into multiple units or multiple floors?
Hmm.
Now you're growing your cost base significantly. And so the way we approach it is, you've got your option to be able to be notified as soon as a leak happens.
Hmm.
We're even creating an option to say how severe is the leak. We're creating the option to say, hey, look, there's a leak on unit 1201. We should shut off the water in that unit. Or we can shut off the water on the floor. Or we can shut off the water for 3 floors, depending on how the business wants or the building wants to
Hmm.
support that infrastructure. The other thing that we talk about is, people are very uncomfortable with the use of technology to say, what's am I going to connect with their infrastructure, their Wi-Fi, their network, and so on. We built a system that is totally independent of anybody else's infrastructure.
Hmm.
What I like about it is that I can retrofit this into any kind of building, a brand new building that's only a year old, into an old infrastructure building that's 50 years old.
Yeah.
Why? Because my entire infrastructure, my entire sensor grid and communication vehicle is all wireless.
Hmm.
And it's not just wireless, it's cellular based. So if there's a leak on the 20th floor in a 50-year-old building, and you don't want it to go down into all the other floors or leak into the other apartments, we would know that there's a leak on the 20th floor, and we can notify the superintendent or the plumber or any other organizations to be able to easily say, hey, there's a leak, you got to go get that fixed really quickly.
Hmm.
So then it becomes what they call a mop and towel, fixer upper,
Okay.
versus a real
Like a full scale renovation.
full
Like,
scale renovation in order to be able
yeah.
to fix it. Now, the other thing is, if you have that kind of service, what does it mean from an insurance perspective? what's your deductible today? If you've got a leak that's $10,000, is the insurance company covering it for you?
Hmm.
And if you can reduce 4 such leaks over the year that are less than $10,000, how valuable is that as a tool for you to be able to, reduce your costs and reduce your, overall spend in a year?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how we're positioning it. I think property managers in general like the idea. It
Hmm.
really comes down to what does it mean as a dollars and cents spend for them. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, that idea of being able to like provide that kind of insights, right? It's interesting. But I think my question is like there's such a variety, like IoT, right? Such a variety of tools and parts of the space.
Yeah.
How interconnectable is it? Like I know you said you're an independent system that people can deploy, but let's say we had a company on before on the podcast that what they did was there's like a sensor add-on that uses sound. You add it to a pipe, industrial
Yep.
pipe complex, and
Yep.
it'll listen to the pressure going within the pipes and being able to give you an estimate of the pressure without a gauge or without going into the pipes, and then
Amazing, eh?
it gives you kind of that sensory feedback back, right?
Yeah.
Like something that niche like that, right? Can that fit into your ecosystem? Can it fit into your management
Yeah.
into your management dashboard? Yeah.
So the way it would work is every manufacturer of sensors, and there are now, in the last 2 years, we got
Hmm.
into this really in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, there are hundreds to thousands of manufacturers of sensors worldwide.
Hmm.
Where we find our value isn't just the fact that we have our own sensors, but we can now bring other sensors from other people into our ecosystem.
Hmm.
All we need to learn is how that sensor communicates. So, if you think about wireless protocols, you've got Bluetooth, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got NFC, depending on how close you are to a particular device. Then you can get into things such as LoRa and the LoRaWAN, Zigbee and Z-Wave. These are all different
Hmm.
protocols to be able to do wireless communication between devices. And what we've built is our gateway, which is the one that communicates with the outside world and connects all the sensors together. That communicates on a proprietary um,
A signal?
wave signal. Thank you.
Yeah.
And but what we're able to do is say, oh, this connection, this company or this customer really wants this particular device. If we don't have such a device, and we say, yeah, we can integrate that device into our gateway and then onto our platform. What we can do at that point is we can learn the technology around that particular device,
Hmm.
figure out how it communicates, have it communicate to our main gateway, and then now it becomes part of our ecosystem.
So this gateway is almost like a sensory hub that can connect to multiple different types of sensory input. That's really interesting. And I think the really interesting case is you said you develop your own proprietary signals,
Yes,
right? I mean, that is the ultimate way to protect from intrusion, is it not?
it is. So there's two things, right? One is uh, you have to ask yourself, what's the intrusion? Okay, so if I'm not touching anybody else's network, if I'm not touching the network in your house, okay, and I bring in my sensor box and I put the box in your house and I plug it into your mains, but all of the connectivity of those sensors only happens between the sensor and my hub, and that hub then communicates with my cloud. So I'm not touching your network at all. I'm not interfering with anything that you're doing in your home at the moment.
Mm.
And so what's nice about that is that the customer really isn't impacted by a breach.
Mhm.
But the second piece is now if I've got multiple kinds of sensors that the customer wants me to integrate with, now there's that layer of increased security that we have to build into it, right? And so all my sensors are proprietary, so it communicates directly with our hub. Now I'm bringing in other sensors. So can I
Yep.
connect into a Nest? Yes, I can. How does Nest work? Well, I don't know if you saw it recently. I read a great article, yeah, I think it was this morning, that Google went down. So because Google went down,
Hmm.
I couldn't change the heat in my home because
Hmm.
my Nest couldn't connect to the net
Hmm.
and couldn't connect to Google. Now, Google was only down for an hour, but that
Yep.
wasn't the point, right? And all of a sudden, oh my God, here's Google, this super giant
Yeah.
monster
Yeah. Yeah.
organization that is connected worldwide to everything.
Hmm.
They're one downtime, which will be an hour in the entire year. If you think about it, it's 99.999% uptime. But that one time,
Mm-hmm.
now it's impacted this particular home.
Yeah.
And if you do that, now you look at, Alexa, you look at all these interconnected systems. And, it brought me to how we're dealing with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Till today, all our supply chain in Canada, especially, has been always from worldwide.
Yeah.
We didn't have manufacturing processes for our vaccines. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have manufacturing processes for PPE. We
Yep.
didn't have manufacturing processes for a lot of these things that we had to continuously import from China or
Mm-hmm.
Asia or India or wherever. Now, I think what COVID is doing is it's recognizing that yes, you need a place like China and India and all these low cost places, but you have to have certain core components that exist within your geographic boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to bring your supply chain down to smaller and smaller batches, but local. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's also what's going to happen with technology like the Nest, for example, that we can integrate with. Is now instead of having one server that anybody connects to, I think you're going to see Google start to do local servers that are all
Mm.
interconnected, so that if one server goes down in Seattle or in California, it won't impact Canada, or it won't impact Europe, or it won't impact Asia. And I think Microsoft did that. They've got their Office 365 servers splattered all over, U.S. and Canada and Europe and so on, so that each person connects to a local server. They don't connect, and that eventually connects to the greater hub.
Yeah.
But if one hub goes down, you still have the opportunity to keep your, 80 to 90% of your businesses keep going. So
Yeah. Yeah.
coming back
Yeah.
to your original question about security, yes, we can integrate. It does impact security, but it really depends on what data that you're going to pull out of it. If all
Mm-hmm.
you're doing is pulling out, yes, I have a leak, no, I don't, or my humidity in this room is really bad, we should do something about it, send an alert. It depends on what it is. But if it's all interconnected in that building,
Yeah.
now you do have a security flaw.
Hmm. That's interesting, right? The way you put it, it's like this physical barrier to prevent to separate things from each other. Like if you remember, like I used to sell Google Smart Home devices
Yes.
as part of a suite of offerings to the residential market for IoT devices, right? The
Hmm.
residential market for smart homes, right?
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, so we that was really interesting because I got to understand the technology a lot better. So Google Nest, before they got hired, before Google acquired them, they also created their own signal. They call it the Nest Weave. And the problem they're trying to solve was two-faced, exactly like yours. It's have their own signal that communicates, so it's less hackable. But two also is communication, right? Because when you have something like Bluetooth, which is short band and a high burst, allows for the transfer of large packets of data, but devices to be relatively close together, plus
Yeah.
take a lot of power. And Wi-Fi, you can broadcast high amounts of information within a pretty wide space range, right?
Hmm.
So your modem sitting in your living room can broadcast, the internet to upstairs, downstairs,
Yep.
all that. But again, requires a lot of power. So the problem set was for IoT devices, that run on battery, especially, or really small devices. How do you? They don't need to have high bandwidth of information. Like sometimes all you gotta say is like, "Am I on? Yes, no." It's like, it's like, is there smoke? Is there fire? Yes, no. Right? Is there a leak? Right? Is there
That's
water?
it.
Yes, no. All you
That's
gotta say
it.
is that little tiny information, right? So it doesn't require a lot of power. It doesn't require it to be always on. It just needs it to be able to send a low latency signal. So Nest created their own signal, a low latency signal called Weave. And how it works is all devices kind of broadcast together, network with themselves, so that each device can talk to the other device,
Yes.
and it creates a weave within the home, so that you can have multi-operational. So like if like your fire alarm goes off, right, it'll send a broadcast signal out one to your phone, right, so you'll get an alert, but it can also send a signal to your Nest thermostat, to shut off your furnace. And if your what's it your stove right, is also interconnected with the device, right? If it has that
Yes.
made with desk kind of sticker on it, has that
Yes.
chip in it, it can also communicate to the stove and turn the stove off, right? You can run that automation yourself. And
Yes.
the whole point was the same kind of operation your capacity trying to provide to the commercial property management groups. They were trying to do for within homes in a smart, easy to way fashion, focus on safety, right? Focus on safety and security. And I found this super intriguing. This is like around 2015, 2016. I'm like, this is cutting edge. And you're bringing like the next iteration of technology, the forefront of the newest wave of technology integration into the home, right? Making it more surrounding of people. So like I get what you're saying here, like the protection based off that security, right? But the problem again happens that if you see all the intrusion moves from smart home, it hasn't happened from the mainstream product. It all happens to third-party products
Yes.
that people plug in,
Yes.
right? Like that third-party random, like $5 smart plug that you plug into your wall socket that also connects
Yep.
to your Wi-Fi, and then from there, boom, some intruder gets into your Wi-Fi router through that device, and then
Yes. Off you
they
run.
can copy everything, all the packets of data going through your home, and then that's how people get involved, right? And there was a case recently. We had a cybersecurity expert came in. I think it was Mick B from
Yeah.
YSpace.
I know what
I
it is.
think Mick was talking about this, right? I could be wrong, but he talked about this particular case. There was a aquarium, multi-million-dollar aquarium, and the janitor or property manager or somebody installed like a third-party smart thermostat into
Wow.
the system, right? Just a thermostat to control one of the rooms, and it was networked to his computer. He was networked to his phone. He was experimenting with it himself to make things easier, and intruders were able to use the lack of security there to get in from the thermostat to get into the wireless router of this aquarium, through that aquarium, read the packets of data and breach the security infrastructure and took control of the heating elements of the aquarium.
Oh my God.
And they're able to hold this aquarium for ransomware, right? And extract a bunch of money from it. And luckily, nothing happened to the animals. But you can imagine how this could potentially lead to loss of life, right?
Absolutely.
Loss of capital, right? Safety concerns, all these issues, right? It's these third party systems. There was another company that we were talking to. It came out of an incubator meant for immigrant founders, right? A
Okay.
Bala Group. They introduced us to it. There was a security company that they were incubating that was trying to solve this particular problem. How do you better analyze cybersecurity threats from a systems point of view for property managers, right? Is your HVAC system safe?
Right.
Like people like property management groups, like especially for commercial properties, especially for office buildings, they put a lot of infrastructure on the front facing technology, the Ethernet cables, making sure the internet connections, the Wi-Fi, all that's secure. But the back end technologies, like the HVAC systems, the heating controls, all that kind of stuff is kind of on the back burner. And those are the elements for intrusion from a property standpoint that's becoming more and more of a concern,
Right.
right?
And absolutely, there's two things to remember. One is the system that you're putting in, whatever that system is it inward facing or is it outward facing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if all you're doing with a system that you put in is outward facing, meaning that I'm collecting the data, I'm sending it out. I'm collecting the data, I'm sending it out, and there's no content that's coming in to that system.
Mm-hmm.
It creates its own firewall in the ecosystem that belongs to those kinds of environment. The second piece, which is where you're going at, or at least how I see where you're going at, is if you've got all these systems. So you've got a HVAC system, you've got an air conditioning system, you've got, I mean, it's in stage. You've got a hot water heater system, and now these are all smart. All these manufacturers like Trane and all these really big, even commercial manufacturers are making these smart systems so that you're able to monitor content within the machine itself, but you're also able to monitor the environment that's associated to it. Now, but the thing that you have with that is now you've got a two-way signal going in. I can communicate with the device, and the device can then communicate back. And so the challenge there is, what are you doing? How is that data communication happening? And if you've got a one-way communication, just basically taking the data out, going in through that infrastructure is a little harder. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's all sorts of great hackers out there that can do pretty much anything. But if you've got already that system to say that the only objective of that content is to be sending it out, can you still do something with it? Absolutely. You can hack into the cloud. You can send alerts where there are none. You can send, and if you connect that to the next services, you got to be careful what you do with the data. But coming back to where you were getting, if I can communicate into the system, now I can connect to all the different systems that are within the inside the firewall itself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of. Like I'm still learning about how these kind of intrusions work and things like that because it's fascinating, right? I mean, the cybercrime and cyber warfare is becoming more and more forefront of our zeitgeist, right? Especially as now with everything being remote, everything working from home, and things being separated, from us being separated from these safety facilities of our workplace and our employers and the investment they put into cybersecurity and securitizing things. Even with that amount of effort, there's still a lot of issues, right? And I think from a systems point of view, right, like where do we solve this? Is it up to integrators like you that come in and figure out from a systems point of view while you're installing that, hey, by the way, you should also look at this, right? Or is it like, consultants come into that? Like where do the first principles thinking come when it comes to cybersecurity and thinking for the future of it? Like how do we plan for it moving forward?
I think there's a lot of great companies out there that are already planning.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of great large companies, startups, everything that are looking at this kind of information and trying to figure out how to position it for property managers, individual homes, whatever that may be. I think similar to what has happened, again, I'll use COVID as an example. Nobody thought that we were going to get into a global pandemic.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say nobody. Bill Gates thought it a year ago. Who's the scientists in Delaware or Maryland? They created a think tank. They ran a scenario where they had a virus that came in from China, and how did it spread? And they did a 3-week, I think it was a 3-week session, and they nailed 80% of everything that happened with COVID as it happened starting January. And they did this back in November of 2019. And they'd already created, oh my God, this is going to happen next. And they had, some very good thinkers in the world came together for that 3-week conference and created, almost created a work plan on how to handle a pandemic. So to say that nobody thought of it is wrong. People were thinking about it, but nobody really took it to say we need to be able to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
I think the government of the United States tried to do that back in 2012, 13, 14 area because they were dealing with the Ebola situation that had happened around the world. But it didn't become a pandemic. It was localized to one sector of the world. But nobody thought of it. And I think now that it happened and all these resources were put to it and got into it and created all of these different processes and what can you do here, what can you do here? And literally everybody's been running or flying by the seat of their pants and making decisions pretty quickly as they go along. I think what's going to end up happening in the example that you just gave is that it's not going to impact anybody, and few people are going to be that forward thinking to say, yes, we need to be able to do this until they get into a problem. When they get into a problem, then they say, yes, I need this, and I need this, and I need this. And then they're going to go shopping for what works, what's already out there, and how does that fit with the way I want to work, and then take advantage of that. I think, you look at ransomware today. Everybody thinks that they're not going to get hit until they get hit.
Yeah.
And then once they get hit, now you have to say, okay, how do you deal with it? Some people, people way smarter than me are already thinking about what to do, how to back up information, how far back do we need that information in order to be able to say, I'm not going to pay the ransom, I'm just going to restore from 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. And if you can think that far ahead, terrific. I think you've got the right play, but it's insurance against what may happen. We
Yeah.
don't know that it will happen.
Yeah.
Right? And so
So
that's
I want to roll back to the product and the development side of things, right?
sure.
Like, like it's one thing, there's challenges anytime you're building and launching software. There's challenges when it comes to building and launching hardware. For you, you got elements of both involved into that, right? Where does the operational capacity to understand one, the problem sets of your clients and how to build this out come from? Where did that yin and yang come from? Like, what led to this point where you decided I want to build this IoT company?
Yeah. So we have very good people that we work with, and it's the good people that we work with that give us the intelligence to be able to say, I can create an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be where we are today. And the other thing I think for us, like I said before, we're not the geniuses who came up with the idea. We're smart guys. Don't get me wrong, but the geniuses are the ones who are on the front line today, seeing the problem and then saying, hey, I think I have a way to solve this. Can you guys do this? We're just fortunate that those geniuses who are out there are talking to people like us. And we can say, hey, you know what, these are our customers. Our customers are looking for this. This is a great idea. Let's see what we can do with this idea. And it's not like a switch that turns on to say, yes, you want it, I have it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
We've taken the last 2 years to build it out.
Yeah.
And when we talk about it, when we looked at, just like we created our first version of Clipboard, we went and said, listen, I don't want to build it. I'm sure there's 100 pieces of software out there for our customer. Let's just go find it, show them how to use it, and then move on.
Yeah.
We looked. We couldn't find it. When we couldn't find it, then we said, okay, maybe we're looking too small. Let's really look enterprise. When we looked at enterprise, the costs were horrendous. And it didn't fit the specific requirements of our customers. So what we learned was, when we were building Clipboard, the software changed the way the customer worked. Because the customer had to adapt to the workflow process of all these different software. What we said was, we're building it from scratch. We'll let them tell us how to create the workflow. So then we went in and said, how do you want to work? And so we tailored the software to fit the way the customer works.
Yeah.
And so then as we got more and more customers, we standardized on a key set of functionalities that all customers require. And then we kept a layer of custom pieces that worked specifically for each customer.
Yeah.
So one guy said, oh, I want a QuickBooks integration. Great, we have that. Oh, one buddy said, I have a Sage integration. Okay, great, we have that. Somebody said, oh, I want to integrate with GPS. Okay, great, we have that. That's on the software play. But with the same concept, even with integrating with the hardware, was we searched, we looked at businesses out there. We looked at people who are doing this kind of stuff, which, even though it's a very big thing to say IoT in the world, and it's been around for 5-6 years, practical applications for Internet of Things or IoT devices has only come around in the last 2 years. And you talk about connectivity, putting the hub together, and the hub technology, and how to be able to interface with multiple kinds of sensors. What do those sensors mean? Where does it fit? How do you communicate that? All of those pieces really are coming to fruit in the last year. And so when we looked at all these different things, and we couldn't see the fit of the way we wanted to work, and we found a partner that we work with that's doing exactly what we want. And so then we said, okay, yeah, we got to build this. So we got to.
No, I think that's really interesting. And what's really cool is, I mean, you're describing like the penultimate kind of form of lean startup thinking, right? Build what the customer wants. Customer is king. Work within what they want, right? But I feel like there's just a position here between two standards of thinking. One is, you have a problem you want to solve. You go to the customers who experience the problem, figure out how to solve it within the work frames that they want to work, and tailor it for them, right? And there's definitely it's a great merit to that. There's also a different merit, like the Henry Ford type thinking, right? Like it's like, why, if I listen to my customers, they want a faster horse, right?
Yeah.
To be truly innovative, the argument is, you build something that out there, and then you get everyone to fold into that infrastructure, the novel way of doing things.
You can have any color you like as long as it's black. And that was Henry Ford's line.
Yeah.
But absolutely, Akio Morita, who I've read up on a little bit. He's the past CEO of Sony Technologies.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 80s, he came out with the Walkman.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew what they wanted
Mm-hmm.
from a Walkman. I don't know. Maybe you're too young for a Walkman, but
I remember.
what he did was really quite interesting. He said, "My customers don't know what they want. I've created something new and I'm bringing it to them." So he had 3 lines of development cycles. He had one line that says, "Okay, I've got this Walkman. What's my next gen of Walkman?" Second line was, "I want to disperse that first 2 lines of Walkman." So he had a second line of developers and thinkers looking at what more could you do. And because even just having a Walkman, having portable music, putting a cassette in there, and again, you probably don't know what cassettes are, but putting a cassette in your Walkman and playing it on your headsets was a big deal in the 80s.
Yeah.
I remember clearly, like, I mean, my Walkman. I don't have anything that big. Well, the size of my modem here, it was so big, but I carried it. It was like, I had a purse on the side, and that's what I carried, and I carried all my music.
Yeah.
And then in his third one, again, he was, thinking far enough down the road where he can disperse what the second unit was doing, because he said, "My customers don't know what they want."
Mm-hmm.
You asked a great question early on. How do you deal with companies and businesses that are not technologically aware or don't know how to use the technology for themselves? Well, the way I position it is, I'm giving you a very narrow focused tool. I'm giving you a tool that says, "Hey, you have a leak or you don't have a leak." That's it. It's relatively simplistic. All of the technology that goes in it is my headache, not yours. And so what ends up happening is, if I can focus it down to the benefit versus the technology, that's where I think I'm going to make an inroad with my customers. Yes, the customers are telling us, but we're the if I don't want to use the word genius, we're the smart guys who put all the technologies together. And we have a great team that we work with to, hey, they understand the technology, they understand what the framework is, they understand how to make all the pieces fit. And so if I can get, what was it? Another great example. The United States of America spent $1 million on a pen that can write upside down in space. Do you know that story?
Yes. How the ballpoint pen, the ballpoint pen was invented.
Yes. Oh no, this is a pen that can write in space, because there's no gravity. A pen here on Earth uses gravity to allow the ink to flow through the nib and write on the paper. In space, there's no gravity because and there's no pressure, right? So they had to put artificial pressure into the inkwell and push. Every time you push down on the paper, the pressure used to push the ink through, and then you write. Russia came up and said, "This is ours."
The pencil. Yeah.
And I mean, it was a joke, but still, it was a great joke. If you can simplify the use of the tool and give them just the tool and the understanding of the tool, the technology part is my headache to build. And so, coming back to your original question, how do you deal with all these different technologies and putting it all together? The customer doesn't know what they want. Well, that's not true. They don't know how the technology works, but they definitely know what they want. And it's my job to put the technology together to give them what they want. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So it's like a yin-yang effect, the push and pull, right? Push of the technology provider, right, and pull of the service user, like trying to work with them to work together to push a new innovation out there. That's an interesting way of putting it. And I mean, I've talked to a few people about this, and I think like that's one of the interesting things of innovation, right? Do you build first, and then you sell it to everybody else, or do you build it within the framework of what's existing and work it in there? But I mean, one of the things I would ask is like, you personally, right? How did you get into IoT? Like, what was that trajectory look like? Was it a career move? It's like, you see this field coming and you want to get into there, and you want to move into that industry. Was it a personal pain point that you experienced somewhere? personal interest? Where would it come from?
I'll tell you, for me, leak mitigation and the Water IQ project and everything else is a personal thing because I've had 3 leaks in my home,
Hmm.
and I've spent a few $1,000s in fixing it up after the fact.
Yeah.
And I always thought, damn, there's got to be a way to do this. And sure enough, when my customer said, "Can you add these kinds of features?" it became a very natural fit for something that I wanted to look at anyway.
Hmm.
But getting into IoT technology, I'm not sure I'm that smart.
Hmm.
I look at it as it's a natural direction of what we've been doing with our software.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is that our software can do many, many things because of the way we've designed it, and that it's purposefully built specifically for specific kinds of tasks. And if I have to say, you know what, Ravi, I need you to go somewhere and do this, and I schedule it through our software, and you receive it on your mobile device, and you go and send it. You go to the destination, you do your job, and well, how do I send Ravi less? How do I, get him to do less work, still pay Ravi what he deserves, but manage more customers? That's when you start getting into how the technology, how remote technology is going to work, how the data that comes in from that shows you more information than you had before. We worked with a sensor developer that created a bin sensor. So imagine you've got these big vat garbage bins. I have to go and collect it every single day. What if I don't have that much garbage in that particular bin? Do I need to go there? I've got 500 bins across
Hmm.
the city.
Hmm.
Well, guess what? If I only have to send one truck to 300 bins, how much time am I saving? How many resources am I saving? And I look at that as what's valuable in the last 2 years is the democratization of data,
Hmm.
and a lot of that comes down to how the data is ingested into everybody's life. If I can put sensors out into the world and say, yeah, I know there's going to be 4 centimeters of snow in Richmond Hill, but there's only 1 centimeter of snow in Mississauga. Well, I think I need to focus my guys on Richmond Hill. Or
Hmm.
there's 300 garbage bins, but only 20 are full. Well, then let's
Yeah.
go to empty those 20, and then worry about the other 280 when they become full.
Hmm.
Same concept. The more data you start bringing in, the more you know where to spend your resources.
Absolutely.
And so for me, you
Yeah.
asked the question, how did I get into it? I got into it because I already had one tool, which was the communication vehicle, the scheduling vehicle, the optimization vehicle of the person doing the work. Now I just extended that to say, what more can I give them to be able to do less work, but more efficiently?
Hmm. I think that's the penultimate form of what I promise of IT, right? It's like a distributed spread of like sensory mechanisms that just gives you data that you can perform intelligence through,
Yeah.
right? And have you heard of this like this idea of like digital twins, right? Like using creating virtual simulations of environments using real world data from IoT solution from IoT
Yeah.
points. So there's a company that came on our podcast, 3D Cityscapes. They just raised, I
They're
think,
a great company. I love those guys.
yeah, Reza
I've
and
seen them.
yeah, I mean they're crushing it. So I
Yeah.
knew Reza for a long time. Back when he was working within the industrial roofs kind of space, and then from there, he navigated into 3D Cityscapes, and they're doing phenomenal right now. Phenomenal. They got like some world-class kind of projects they're working on, and they're creating these 3D dimensional, replicas of buildings and entire cities. Right? They're
Absolutely.
replicating, I think, downtown Dubai, like completely, in that Unity engine. And one of the things we were talking about is like the next iteration of that is pairing that together with IoT sensors. So you don't just have this like a walkthrough map, a 3D dimensional map of the city and the buildings inside out, but you also have the sensors
Yeah.
seeing the water flow, how the light, how much light is coming in and how much energy is going to that, the AC is running, the power utilization, like a real world simulation, almost like Sim City brought to life, right? Where you can run models against it,
Yeah.
tension modeling and figure out and look for the pain points, but also see how the future run rates would be, and the idea of simulating life, real life, right? I think it's super exciting there, right? Do you see that being
I was working with a startup about 15 years ago. I lived in Dubai for 3 years,
okay?
and I was working with a startup in Dubai that did exactly that, but
Hmm.
nothing to the scale of what Reza and his team are doing today. Like this is just, otherworldly today, but it has been 15 years, so technology
Yeah.
has certainly improved over the last 15 years.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's I mean, that's really interesting. Right? The fact that like there's this idea has been around, but the technology had to catch up for the implementation of it,
Yeah.
right? And that we've seen the coalescence of that. So I think like we're definitely seeing that. And then I also had Lawrence Etta, the CTO of City of Toronto, on our
Mhm.
podcast, right? And we were talking about open data projects, right? Like New York back in the day, like piloted this program, Open Data New York, and Toronto copied, like as it was moving towards that Open Data at Toronto, where the city itself is collecting all this real world data and informatics and publishing it, right, for real world people to use it, right? I think and then we were talking about the next iteration being plugging that right into these kind of simulation software and working with providers like yourself, so all these different service providers, all these different property managers, and feeding into a collective pool where everyone has a united map of a real world simulation of everything that's going on.
Right.
So your client would have from your portal like a simulation of what's going on within their building infrastructure, but that can communicate with other buildings that might even run on a different system, work within a city infrastructure that works on a different
Absolutely.
system, and kind of start communicating together,
And
right?
I think if you remember what happened about 10 years ago with the e-health,
Mm-hmm.
I think what Ontario government tried to do with e-health was create that platform that says, I've got 500 different, EMRs, electronic medical record systems out there.
Yeah.
I want to create a pool that just, I can pull data from any of those different disparate systems and create a master ecosystem or master data form for all residents of Ontario, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening there was there's a lot of challenges in being able to create that pool. And I think if the city of Toronto or the government of Ontario or even the government of Canada is looking at that kind of stuff, I think there's hundreds of thousands of companies who can start to deliver data, and then in a flat format. It doesn't have to be live data right away. It starts with, like you said, simulation. So I'll give you 1 year's worth of information. Here's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming from me. Now you've got 20 other companies having their 1 year's worth of data, and that's coming from them. And what did they do now that they've got data for 500 buildings? What do you do with it? And now you start getting into the world of AI, and what does it mean? And come back down to the example of how much light am I getting from my south-facing windows versus the light that I'm getting from my north-facing windows. What's the temperature difference between the north side of the building and the south side of the building? Am
Mm.
I needing to adjust temperature, on the 18th floor on the north side of the building a little bit more because there's less sunlight? All those things, those are great questions. And eventually, I mean, once there's this group of companies that are putting it together, but just as importantly, there's a resource that we can all go to put that information in and then create extrapolations against it. I think
Mm.
that's it's a big task.
Yeah.
Don't get me
And
wrong. That's a
I
government
think
level task for sure.
it is, right? But I don't think it's enough for government to champion it because like there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, there's a lot of innovation involved. Do you not think that it should be more of like a public-private partnership, almost like a nonprofit or like a collaboration between a bunch of firms together, creating an entity that kind of sets standards and rules and regulations for them to all coordinate and share data, right, within public-private through private partnerships, right?
Absolutely,
Like a
I do.
standards board or committee, something like that.
Yeah. I think it comes back down to the question you had asked earlier. How do the customers know what they want?
Mm.
And governments may not know what they want.
Hmm.
Even private organizations may not know what they want.
Hmm.
I think being part of an association or being part of a group of businesses that are looking at technology and the way the technology can work for a government or a municipality or a group or a sector, for example. I think that's being part of like an association like that is of immense value. In my own case, like, I mean, I'm part of TechConnect, which is great, and I learn a lot from all the people who are engaged within TechConnects on a regular basis. But I'm also part of, property tech associations, at least through LinkedIn for now. And I'm trying to get myself involved in all these other associations. So it comes back down to the question you just said. If you get like these think tank type of people sitting together in a room and talking about what can we do with this, and what can we do with that, and where do we see ourselves, from a data perspective in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. And I think once those kinds of ideas come out of it, now you can get into the public-private partnerships, and we can say, hey guys, this will create value for you here. Can I get some support from the municipality? Can I get some support from the provincial government? Can I get some support from the federal government? Who can I go after in the private sector to be able to put all that together and then create that PPP, private-public partnerships? In order to be able to do that. But in order to do that, I also think you need to be able to get some of those ideas defined.
Definitely.
And hopefully, the people that I'm interacting with are certainly tweaking my ideas and brains and innovation almost on a daily basis.
No, definitely. And yeah, I think we just need like a good leader to come forward to like lead that, or a group of leaders who can really champion that forward and bring the partnerships required to do that. But I do have like a really pointed question to ask though.
Sure.
What is the executive function of a chief bottle washer?
So I don't know how your home works. My home works in that, we all try and do everything, right?
Yeah.
So some days I'm cooking more today. So my COVID skill is that I'm cooking more than I've ever cooked before, which is great. My son's COVID skill was he wants to get into law, so he took some courses around law. He's getting into different technology. My wife's COVID skill was she got into stocks. So for me, chief bottle washer in a company is somebody who is involved in all aspects and does the job that nobody else is doing at the moment. When we're a small business, we're 10 people. Not everybody is dedicated to one aspect of an organization, right? So you're not just a salesperson. You're also, a technology person in one way, shape, or form. You're also I'm not a developer, but I've done development in my very long past. And so for me, chief bottle washer is somebody who looks at all aspects of the company and can do little bits of pieces of all aspects of the company. So I'm not the CEO. I define myself as COO who does a lot of different things. But I look at it as everybody has to roll their sleeves up and do something. That's what a chief bottle washer who rolls their sleeves up and does something. Whatever it takes.
The get shit done officer.
Get shit done kind of person. Yeah. I love it. It's one of my favorite sayings.
No, definitely. Yeah. So we got kind of tied up with Infield. I didn't get a chance to talk too much about TechConnects.
Yeah.
Can we go get a quick overview of that? What's your chief? What's the chief problem you're solving there, and what do you hope to do?
I don't know if it's a problem that we're solving. I think it's an opportunity for organizations to be able to connect based on the fact that you're using some kind of technology. So a lot of it initially was, oh, look, I'm a technology company. I want to be able to connect with other technology companies. I can go into a doctor's office and I can tell you how much technology that they're using today and say, geez, you're a technology company. I can go into a plumbing office right now and say, how much technology you're using? Geez, you're a technology company. I can go into any organization today uses technology. The difficulty in a lot of these, if you're a tech company like I am, I'm already invested in technology. I've done a lot of research in it. I play in it. I develop in it. So I understand a lot of what technology does. But where I think TechConnects is of huge value is it's now trying to bring in non-technology people to be able to give outlines of what technology can do for them. and also learn from each other. There's hundreds of great technology companies inside, many great technology companies within TechConnects. But there's HR companies, there's cybersecurity companies, there's banks, there's all our board of directors has many phenomenal people on it, municipalities. What's great about it is the layer of technology that we've always said, I'm a technology company, I should only fit within my little. It's no, every company, every business out there is now a technology company. And what TechConnects tries to do is, bring these disparate companies together, allow conversations to take place, just like you and I are doing today. How can we help other members of the technology? What do we have to do? So we have, great sessions for HR. We've got great sessions as a CIO. We've got great sessions from a CEO perspective. We have a CEO roundtable. That's one of the most heavily visited on a monthly basis. Why? Because there's a lot of large technology companies that belong to TechConnects and small technology companies like mine that belong to TechConnects, and we're all doing different kinds of things. But as a company, as a business, many of the features and functions are relatively the same. How are you handling government funding? Oh, how are you handling security breaches? One of my colleagues in TechConnects had a security breach about 8 months ago, and 2 months back I had the exact same kind of security breach. So my partner sends me an email saying, "Hey Prasad, I need you to cover this expense for company X." And I said, "Yeah, sure. I can't do it now. I'll do it later." So I respond, "I can't do it now. I'll do it later." And I sent him off, and he replies right back within 2 minutes. "Yeah, no problem. End of day is good. Perfect." And then I, come to mid-afternoon or something like that, and I look at the email and said, "I don't remember this expense. I don't remember where it came from." So then I called up my partner and I said, "What the hell are you doing? You're asking me to pay this expense. It's a significant number." I said, "But I don't remember authorizing this, and I don't remember you asking for it." He goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "What?" I said, "You just asked me to pay this invoice." And he says, "No, I didn't." And then I look at the email, and it's all of it is except that there's one letter different.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, somebody spoofed his email. I thought it was him. And here I am trying to figure out. And then I didn't do anything. And I say, "Hey, listen, it's a large amount." I replied to the guy back, "Hey, it's a large amount. I can't cover it today. I'll cover it tomorrow." And then he says, "Sure, no problem." Tomorrow he emails me, "Can you make sure you cover it off by the end of the day today?" I thought, wow. So I called up the Canadian anti-squad, and this is the exact same thing that happened to one of my colleagues. And if I hadn't remembered that,
oh my
I would
God.
have just gone ahead and said, "Oh, okay, doesn't make sense," and and I wouldn't have questioned it.
Yeah.
But because it happened there to somebody else, it's holy shit. You think all those things, and that's what I love about an association like TechConnects is, yes, it's a technology base, but it's really, how do you help your business?
Yeah.
How do you grow your business? What are you guys doing differently? What can I do? Hey, I have this kind of a problem. Can you guys, give me some suggestions and so on?
Gotcha. I mean, that's good. That's good. That's pretty good, right? Just like a place for business leaders to go and just have discussions around technology-related issues. The knowledge share is so important. Knowledge share is so important when you're growing any kind of company and business. But man, Prasad, man, this hour kind of went
Run away with us.
Yeah, ran away. This has been really good. I feel like I can sit down and dissect a few more ideas with you. We definitely got to do a round two sometime in the near future.
I'd like.
But this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This has been absolutely great. I love talking about the stuff that I already love, but more importantly, I love talking about stuff I don't know. So next time, I'd love to be on we'll switch it around, okay?
Yeah,
I'll ask
absolutely. Oh, definitely. You interview me, man. Let's sit down for a few minutes. We're gonna do a quick debrief. But for everyone who's listening in, this is Prasad with Infield Solutions and TechConnects.
Thank you so much.